Video ends when I have an unbeaten Premier League season with Arsenal. In the 2003-2004 season, Arsenal became the second team in English football history to go unbeaten for an entire season. Over the 38 games played in the Premier League, their record was 26 wins and 12 draws as Arsene Wenger's side secured a golden Premier League trophy. So today's challenge is simple. Jump into FM, replicate this season, and go unbeaten for an entire year in the Premier League. Let me know down in that comment section how many seasons you think this is going to take me. Kicking off season 1, we will be using a real world database, so I have the existing Arsenal squad at our disposal. And we will need a strong tactic to go unbeaten for the whole season, so I will be rocking GYR's Grogu tactic for this video. It looks like this in game and like this with the best 11 in the squad in the key positions. Ideally, I want to leave Declan Rice as the box-to-box midfielder as I think he's more suited to it, but unfortunately I don't have the right players just yet. We have 5 trophies on offer this season, but one of them matters more for this challenge, and we are predicted to come 3rd in the Premier League this year, behind Liverpool and of course Manchester City. We started off the season with the Community Shield and fired out a statement of intent, getting the result against Pep and Manchester City. 𝘼𝙗𝙤𝙪 was the key man for us in this game, bagging a brace on the way to us lifting the trophy. Sadly, things didn't go as well in the other cup competitions as we dipped out of the EFL Cup to Fulham in the 3rd round and in the FA Cup at the quarter-final stage, with Manchester City getting their own back. In the Champions League, we had a great showing in the group stage, pipping Barcelona to the top spot. We moved into the knockout stages, dispatching Napoli in the round of 16 and Manchester City in the quarter-finals before crashing out to Inter Milan at the semi-final stage. But ultimately, we only care about one competition in this challenge. In the Premier League, we had a remarkable start to the campaign and were unbeaten to finish 2023, seeing us 10 points clear moving into January. Our attack didn't have one focal point, but looking at the top scorer charts, you can really see that we shared things around, with 85 Premier League goals being shared between 6 different players. However, the goal of this challenge was for us to go unbeaten in the Premier League, and that didn't happen this season. We suffered 2 defeats in season 1, which both occurred on the road, as we lost to Newcastle at St James's Park in January and to Wolves at Molineux in March. But results around this were pretty spectacular, and we had a chance to win the title with 5 games to go by beating Manchester United at home. Ten Hag's men took the lead through Christian Eriksen, but we battled back through an 𝘼𝙗𝙤𝙪 brace to lift the Premier League trophy. So it was a good season, we won the Premier League, but it wasn't that golden trophy that I'm looking for. But this is where the fun starts, as I have just shy of 150 million to put my own stamp on this team, and I have a few key targets I want to add. This summer was good fun, as I was able to shift 6 players out of the club, including 2 for large fees. Thomas Partey departed for Manchester United for £45 million, and Kai Havertz swapped the Emirates for the Bernabeu, joining Real Madrid for an initial 53 million that could rise to 70 million. And that gave me a huge transfer kitty to spend on the players I wanted. First up, we activated the minimum fee release clause on Victor Osimhen from Napoli, with him joining the club for £111 million to spearhead our attack moving forward. And to fill the defensive midfield role to free Declan Rice, we signed big Italian wonderkid Giorgio Scalvini from Atalanta for 80 million. Both of these players come straight into our best 11 for the season, and Gabriel Martinelli is starting to develop into a real player on that left-hand side. I'm also trying to add Portuguese wonderkid João Neves to the side from Benfica to act as a depth option in several key positions for an initial £25 million, but the season was ready to start and I hadn't got him over the line yet. We have the same 5 competitions as last season, and this year we are second favourites for the title, so those signings have clearly made a difference. I'm not going to beat around the bush, guys. Season 2 was not the one. We started the season superbly, winning every single game except for a draw away at Newcastle until we faced Manchester United at Old Trafford. Somehow, United really managed to turn up on the day and saw us slump to a 4-2 loss. We then got things back on track but suffered another 3 losses, all on the road, all against London-based opposition, losing to Spurs, West Ham and Chelsea to make it 4 losses on the season. But it's not all doom and gloom, because we did lift the Premier League trophy yet again, this season winning the title by 16 points. However, the success did not stop with the Premier League title this season. We opened the season with the Community Shield, where we had a North London derby taking on Tottenham.
What do we think of Tottenham?
This game was comfortable for us as we bagged 3 first-half goals without reply to lift the Community Shield for a 2nd season in a row. Last season we were pretty poor in the domestic cups, but it felt like this season we really turned a corner in them. We flew through to the final of the EFL Cup, where we would face Manchester United, where Raphael Varane put United ahead, only to see Declan Rice pull us level. In the second half, Zinchenko received his marching orders, picking up his 2nd yellow card, and eventually the extra man took its toll as Diogo Dalot fired home this banger to see United lift the trophy. However, we got our own back on them later in the season in the FA Cup. We progressed through the early rounds pretty comfortably before scraping past both Sheffield United and Newcastle, both results coming in extra time. This time on our return to Wembley, we were firing on all cylinders and United did not have a chance, as we smashed home 3 unanswered goals to lift the club's 15th FA Cup trophy. And finally, in the Champions League, we stumbled through the league phase, finishing 13th in the table, meaning we'd have to go into the knockout playoff round. However, the knockout rounds are evidently where things started to click for us. In the playoff round, we hammered Club Brugge, including an 8-1 thumping at the Emirates to see us progress. This set up a round of 16 tie with AC Milan, and we managed to move on comfortably here as well, winning the tie 7-2 on aggregate. It was Portuguese champions Porto up next in the quarter-finals, and we progressed without even getting out of second gear, toppling them 9-2 on aggregate. The semis threw up a huge challenge in Real Madrid, and we were at the Bernabeu for the first leg. We gave away a penalty early doors, but luckily for us, David Alaba smashed it wide of the target. But the 14-time champions did open the scoring through Vinicius Jr., but luckily for us, Victor Osimhen was there to pull us level a few minutes later. However, you'll never guess what happened next. Jude Bellingham scored a goal for Real Madrid to make the game 2-1, leaving us with a bit of a job to do back at the Emirates. However, our home form this campaign was remarkable, and Gabriel Martinelli was able to score twice in the first half to put us into the lead in the tie, and we restricted Madrid to just 2 off-target shots in the whole game. So this meant that we play in the Champions League final for the first time since the 05-06 final, where Arsenal lost to Barcelona. Who remembers that game? This time we face English opposition as we face Manchester City, but they've sacked Pep in this save, so this should be fun. And fun it was. Victor Osimhen opened the scoring for us before Gabriel Martinelli put in another man-of-the-match performance, bagging an impressive hat-trick on the big stage to see Arsenal finally lift a Champions League trophy. So we won a quadruple in Season 2, but this challenge will roll on thanks to those 4 Premier League defeats. But you can really tell that this team's pretty damn good. And no surprise, the addition of Victor Osimhen was a good one, as he went on to score 41 goals in all competitions this season. And this is where saves in England can become very silly, as the Arsenal board have given me £272 million to spend on this team for Season 3, and I think there's some time for some more defensive reinforcements. Despite having more cash to spend than I knew what to do with, I was able to top up the budget by another £126 million by moving 4 players out of the club. Newcastle seemingly liked what we were doing at the club, as they signed Ruel Walters on a free and followed that up with Leandro Trossard for £39 million and Albert Sambi Lokonga for £39.5 million. And we finally moved Alexander Zinchenko over to Real Madrid for another £47.5 million. So I took that money and I went shopping in Germany at Bayern Munich. First, to replace Zinchenko in the left-back spot, we activated the minimum fee release clause on Alphonso Davies, bringing him to the club for £106 million. A week later, we added his Bayern teammate Jamal Musiala for another £104 million, bringing him back to London, having left Chelsea for Germany in 2019. I wanted another defensive option, so went out and signed Antonio Silva from Benfica for £64 million, and we picked up Zach Steffen on a free to be our backup keeper because, you know, FM24 and that. So that was only £148 million net spend, so I think this is a good window considering how this is the team going into the season, and we have some absolute studs in this side now. As Champions League winners, we will add the UEFA Super Cup to a hectic schedule, but domestically the tide has changed and we are now favourites to win the Premier League, with the media best 11 littered with our players. The season started with the Community Shield, where after a 1-1 draw with United, things would be settled via penalty shootout, where I couldn't quite believe what happened as we missed all 3 of our penalties to lose the shootout 3-0. I was fuming at this until I found out that Arsenal lost the Community Shield on penalties to United in the Invincible season, so perhaps that was an omen. We also took an L in the UEFA Super Cup at the start of the season, losing to last season's Europa League winners Chelsea in Zagreb, conceding 2 late goals to Enzo and Nkunku. And it was Chelsea that also knocked us out of the FA Cup as well. We managed to coast past Spurs and Liverpool and then Stockport County in the FA Cup before losing to Chelsea at Stamford Bridge, again on penalties. I really hope this doesn't turn into a defining characteristic for this Arsenal team. However, we did have some success this season in knockout competitions, firing our way through to the EFL Cup final, where we would take on Manchester City, who in this universe have already hired and fired Unai Emery since the Champions League final last season. It seems like we've got City's number right now, as this was one of the most ridiculous first half performances I have ever seen. We smashed in 5 goals in the first half and ultimately coasted to a 5-1 win and our first trophy of the season. But things didn't stop there, because we still had our Champions League trophy to defend. The league phase was pretty self-explanatory, finishing 3rd in the table and automatically qualifying for the round of 16. This is where we take on Benfica, and after a cagey 1-1 draw in Portugal, we battered them at the Emirates to progress comfortably. In the quarterfinals, it was an English opposition as we took on Aston Villa. We got a nice 4-0 win at Villa Park before ripping them apart at home 4-1 to move into the semi-finals without really breaking a sweat. PSG were the semi-final opponents, and in the first leg, Emil Smith-Rowe scored a nice brace with a Kylian Mbappe goal sandwiched in between to give us a slender lead to defend in Paris. However, we managed to extend the lead in Paris through Declan Rice and another from Smith-Rowe to make it 4-1 on aggregate. PSG did start to clap back with goals from Mbappe and Carlos Soler, but it was a little case of too little, too late, and we advanced to our 2nd Champions League final in a row, where we'd face Nice. In their defence, they had knocked out Chelsea and Barcelona to get to this final, so I guess they do deserve it. But taking to the field, we were heavy favourites for this game, and we duly delivered, with Jamal Musiala bagging a 7-minute brace before Gabriel Jesus made it 3-0 before the French side even knew what was going on. This was probably one of the easiest Champions League finals you will see, as we ultimately ran out 5-1 winners, going back-to-back in the competition. But we're all here for the Invincible Premier League season, right? Well, that didn't happen again this season. Yes, we were good, but suffered defeats against Liverpool twice, Manchester City and Burnley to make it 4 defeats on the season yet again. However, it would be 3 Premier League trophies in a row, as we beat Aston Villa to the title by 13 points. And if you look at the top of the average rating charts, it is littered with Gunners. Shout out to Musiala for taking things in his stride this season, netting 20 goals and providing 19 assists in all competitions, a fantastic first year back in England. So it was another 3 trophies this season, and I really think this team is right on the cusp of completing this challenge. The English League silly money is back this summer, and we have another 200 million to spend on this team, but to be honest, I'm not really sure what I'm going to do with it. This summer, we were able to generate another 114 million, as selling our players seems pretty easy right now. Eddie Nketiah joined league runner-up Aston Villa for £24.5 million. Jurrien Timber found his opportunities limited here, so he joined Bayern Munich for £42.5 million. And finally, Gabriel Jesus departed the club, joining PSG for £46.5 million. I admit I went overboard in this window, bringing in defensive reinforcements, as I spent a whopping £444 million. We do love installments over on this channel. Firstly, we picked up a transfer listed 𝘼𝙗𝙤𝙈 𝙈𝙚 from Real Madrid for the bargain price of £44 million. I wanted to add an experienced head into the midfield, and we signed 𝘼𝙗𝙤 𝙼𝙗 on a free following his contract ending in Saudi Arabia, and I'd still say at 31, he's definitely still got it. But to take us up a level defensively, I signed Alessandro Bastoni from Inter Milan for £175 million and Jules Koundé from Barcelona for an eye-watering £225 million. I told you I meant business this season. And this team is up there with one of the most overpowered sides I have ever assembled, and it still has some of the Arsenal originals in the way of Ramsdale, Saliba, Rice, Martinelli and Saka. We have 6 trophies to play for this season, and we've already secured one of them, winning the Community Shield, battering Brentford at Wembley. I really wanted to see what this team was capable of before we started the season. The squad depth at this club is so good now, we are odds-on favourites to retain the Premier League, but I want to be invincible. After picking up the first trophy of the season in the Community Shield before we got into this, you'd think we'd kind of go on to win every single trophy on offer, right? You're wrong. It seems like the UEFA Super Cup is something we cannot win, as we crashed out to Inter Milan with Francesco Pio Esposito scoring a decisive penalty in the 84th minute. And the disappointment didn't stop there, as we lost on penalties yet again in a cup competition, losing away to Everton in the EFL Cup 4th round. We did progress better in the FA Cup, progressing all the way to the semi-finals, only conceding 1 goal on the run where we'd come up against Manchester City. The game was a bit of a damp squib, but we did finally manage to get that penalty loss demon off of our back, as Ramsdale saved 2 penalties in the shootout to move into the final. It would be Chelsea in the final, and this game was mad, with goals flying in all over the place and the lead changing hands constantly. However, after Declan Rice sent us to extra time with his 96th minute strike, Gabriel Martinelli completed his hat-trick to see us lift the FA Cup for the 2nd time in 3 seasons. But could we three-peat the Champions League? Well, our start to the competition was rocky to say the least, considering we lost 3 times in the league phase, but still managed to finish in 14th and qualify for the knockout stages. In the playoff round, we faced Lazio, a team that beat us already in the league phase. However, this tie was relatively routine, as we won 4-0 in Rome and 5-1 back at the Emirates to get our own back for the league phase loss. In the round of 16, it brought another trip to Italy to take on Inter Milan. However, this time the first leg was at the Emirates, and we basically put the tie to bed with an emphatic 8-0 win. Yes, you heard me. We won 8-0. It was Aston Villa in our way for a 2nd season in a row at this stage, and we won the first leg at the Emirates 4-1, but had a mini wobble, losing the away leg 2-0, but being able to progress 4-3 on aggregate thanks to that home win. History was repeating itself here, as we would take on PSG in the semis for a 2nd season in a row. We drew the first game at the Emirates 1-1, leaving us it all to do in Paris, but the boys didn't disappoint, with Martinelli bagging a brace to sandwich a goal from 𝘼𝙗𝙤𝙈. It seems like Martinelli is turning into one of the most clutch players in this team. This set up another Champions League final, and this time it was an all-London affair as we would take on Chelsea. The game was cagey and ultimately settled by an own goal from Benoit Badiashile, with Aaron Ramsdale putting in a man-of-the-match performance to see us lift our 3rd Champions League trophy in a row. This team is definitely special, but did we complete the goal of this video? Well, the start of the season was pretty straightforward, but we did pick up several draws to open the campaign, so we're a little bit off of the title pace. We did see things click into gear moving into December, picking up 19 points from the 21 on offer. We didn't have one elite goal scorer in the league, but we are very much sharing things around, with Osimhen, Martinelli and Saka all near the top of the goal scoring charts. And even more impressively, we had 3 of the top assist providers in the league, with Musiala, Odegaard and Saka combining for 45 assists. Moving into 2027, we continue to be impressive, dropping the occasional point here and there with a few rare draws, but I can say that Season 4 was the one, as this remarkable team went unbeaten in the Premier League for a whole season. We picked up 28 wins and 10 draws, which is pretty similar to the 26 wins and 12 draws real-life Arsenal achieved. So if you want to carry this on, this save is over on my Patreon right now, and if you like these sorts of challenge videos, check out this one where I rebuild Barcelona to clear their debt without signing a single player.